Good morning friends, you are most welcome to Think IS channel. Today we are going to discuss social anthropology by Maan IGNOU, and our topic is gender and society, in which we are going to discuss unit 2, patriarchy and male dominance. Let us begin the topic. First of all, we will discuss the content part. First, introduction. Second, theoretical perspective on the origin of patriarchy. Third is sexuality of women and male dominance. Fourth is historical perspective on women's productive and reproductive roles. Fifth is patrilocality, matrilateral kinship and patriarchy. Sixth is marriage pattern and the institutionalization of patriarchy and male dominance. At the last we will discuss summary. Learning objectives are, after having read this unit, you should be able to define and understand patriarchy and male dominance, understand the origin of patriarchy, understand that how control over women's sexuality is a reflection of patriarchy, understand the dynamics and linkages between production, reproduction and patriarchy, locate patriarchy in an anthropological, historical and archaeological perspective, understand the institutionalization of patriarchy and male dominance through kinship, family and marriage patterns, etc. And understand how caste and patriarchy are interlinked and how caste becomes an instrument of male dominance and patriarchy. Let us begin the introduction part. We are living in the so-called modern, or by some standards postmodern world, which is based upon the ideology of egalitarianism and universality. But try and look around and you will find lots of examples that are contrary to the general conception about this 21st century. We are still carrying the burden of traditional divided society, which was based primarily on ascribed statuses that ensured the place of a person in a particular community, caste or group by virtue of her birth in the particular group. Prejudice and discriminatory attitude is something that has not changed much over a period of time. This is true even in the case of gender discrimination, which is a manifestation of patriarchal mindset and ideology that stops short of calling this century a truly modern one. While panning down this unit, there is a debate going on in electronic and print media about the issue of male dominance and patriarchy. Cases in point are the recent molestation of a girl by a mob in Guwahati, Assam, and pronouncement of a patriarchal dictates by Khab or Caste Panchayat in Uttar Pradesh. In Bagpat district of Uttar Pradesh, a Caste Panchayat announced that the women of the village will not carry mobile phones with them and their movement in and around the village will be monitored and restricted. Similarly, in Assam, a girl was molested by a mob publicly and in full view of the media. These incidents also highlighted the insensitivity and callous attitude of some agencies that were supposed to be the custodians of women's rights. This brings us to the point where we should understand and rethink about how our society is structured in a manner that is biased towards a male member and overlook the rights and privileges of women. Raj Lakshmi, 2012. Sometimes the state apparatus also behaves and is structured in such a way as to promote male dominance. One can look at the example of Hindu Succession Act 1956, which was amended in 2005 but still contains provisions that are in favor of women's husband's family. This act relates with the succession of property. It is stated in the act that the self-acquired property of a woman who dies without writing her will and in the absence of her husband and children will belong to her husband's family and not to her parents. This is a clear reflection of a societal and traditional norm where a woman after marriage is considered to be a member of her in-laws family and not to her natal family. Similarly, in a marriage alliance, a woman is not considered as an equal partner in marital property or husband's property acquired after marriage. This inequality devalues her contribution towards the marital property in terms of her labor that she provides under the rubrics of housekeeping and as a primary caregiver to her children and husband. Singh 2012, Rao 2008 and Pal 2004. Beside these examples, there are other more visible instances like sex-selective abortions that indicate towards a generalized discriminatory attitude towards women. These examples also reflect a patriarchal mindset and male dominance. The next section will deal with the definition and theoretical perspectives on patriarchy and male dominance. Activity: make an inventory of similar issues that depicts male dominance. Look around for such examples. Read newspapers and magazines for such news that depict a power relation between male and female. Next heading is theoretical perspectives on the origin of patriarchy. Now one may wonder, how can we define patriarchy? It is a rather tricky question. As with other kinds of definitions related with social phenomena and concepts, defining patriarchy in its entirety is not always possible. It is therefore better to understand the concept rather than getting into some watertight definition. However, patriarchy can be defined as a system of social structure and practices in which men dominate, oppress and exploit women. Walby 1990. This definition clearly outlines the nature of patriarchy, which is ingrained in our social structure that gives it a very fundamental character. Based on this social structure, men dominate and exploit women, and their action gets legitimatized by the existing structure through institutions like family, kinship, marriage, religion, class, caste, race, etc. Patriarchy envisages within itself a form of power relation between men and women. In this relationship, a hierarchy exists that places men in an advantageous position, and this makes a complete recipe for female exploitation. In a more literal sense, patriarchy, Pitra Satta in Hindi, denotes rule of father in a male-dominant family. This rule emerges from an unequal resources distribution like land, which is invariably inherited by the male line of descent. This control over the resources later gets translated into control over the production and reproduction of women. However, later in this unit we will also see that how matrilineal and bilateral kinship structures alter this power relation in family and outside. Feminism as an ideology has always tried to deal with the question and conception of patriarchy. There are different philosophical traditions in feminism that conceptualize patriarchy differently. Prominent among them are liberal feminism, Marxist feminism, and radical feminism. Liberal feminism is based on the philosophy of the individual rights. The birth of liberal feminism dates back to the 18th century when it was realized that women should no longer be subjugated to the authority of males. It was in this context that liberal feminists challenged the customary and legal framework that reflected a biased understanding of women based on their inferior physical and intellectual capabilities, which were used as instruments to subjugate and subordinate women. It is with the writings of Mary Wollstonecraft that one traces the birth of liberal feminism as a separate feminist movement in her Magna Carta, a vindication of the rights of women. Wollstonecraft advocates for equal opportunity for both men and women. She emphasizes that it is imperative that women are educated and made aware of their political and social rights in order to claim equal status at par with men. In the 19th century, John Stuart Mill emerged as the leading scholar of liberal feminism and advocated that women are required to participate equally and proactively in various societal affairs and hence strive for equality. Mill 1869, Einstein 1981. Liberal feminist advocates that women should not only be confined to the domestic domain and there should be equal opportunity for them to participate in the public and political spheres of life. According to them, patriarchy has confined women to the four walls of the house and therefore they need to get liberated in order to come out of the clutches of patriarchy. Liberals attacked the myth that women, because of their feminine behavior, are not suited for outside world and therefore they seek refuge and security within the domestic sphere of life. However, liberal feminism is being criticized on the issue of being very individualistic and therefore totally overlooking the structural, societal and familial basis for male dominance and patriarchy. Liberal feminism is being criticized on the issue of being very individualistic and therefore totally overlooking the structural, societal and familial basis for male dominance and patriarchy. Liberal feminists do not take a critical view of family and are focused solely on capturing space and rights for individual women in the public domain. They are also being criticized for being elitist since most of the rights gathered in this manner will be availed by the so-called upper class or caste women. Therefore, this stream of feminism did not voice the concern of other differentially suppressed women on the basis either of class, caste, race, etc. Again, on the issue of origin of male dominance and patriarchy, liberal feminists are found wanting. They do not provide with a theory that can explain the circumstances that led to patriarchal setup and male dominance in society. This gap was, however, filled by Marxist feminist or Marxist feminism that deals with the issue of origin of patriarchy and male dominance. Marxist feminists are of the view that patriarchy originated with the origin of private property. Engels 1948. It is with the emergence of private ownership of property and its transfer through the male line of descent that patriarchy as a social structure was born. They also relate the concept of patriarchy with the capitalist mode of production. However, they have been criticized for just adding the issue of gender to their already existing framework of the class operation. They are also silent on the issue of women operation before the advent of private property. There are empirical evidences that point to the fact that women oppression and male dominance was present even before the advent of the private property. Claude Lévi-Strauss observed that even before observed that the exchange of women is the basic form of exchange and it took place because of some taboo on incestuous relationships, sexual relation between close relatives like father and daughter, brother and sister, and mother and son, etc. In each and every society, this kind of taboo required that women be acquired from a group outside one's own and thus clan lineage village exogamy originated. This gave rise to the manipulation of female sexuality and hence the emergence of male dominance. Another group of feminist scholars, known as radical and revolutionary feminists, tried to understand and explain the origin of patriarchy and male dominance through the notion of female sexuality and its manipulation by the male. They are of the view that biologically women are different from men. This is the basic fact recognized by this brand of feminism. This biological difference defines the role of women as child bearers. This biological role is, however, translated and interpreted as related to the notion of motherhood, which defines the role of mother in terms of both childbearing and child rearing. They are of the view that biology alone is not responsible for such skewed power relations between male and female, but their cultural interpretation is responsible for the same. Gendering of sex take place in the socio-cultural context. In other words, the control of male over the reproductive capacity of female is the root cause of patriarchy. Sheila Jaffrey, one of the revolutionary feminists, puts her point on the origin of patriarchy by saying that there are basically two systems of class that operate in a society: the class based on and originating from the relations of production, and the class that is based on and originates from the relation of reproduction. It is the second system of class that is responsible for women's subordination and patriarchy. Similarly, Fenella Mackenzie argued that the first kind of division of labor was between men and women and is originated from women's reproductive capacity and men's greater strength. This made women dependent on men and thus gave rise to unequal power distribution. However, she also writes that it is not only because of this differential reproductive capacity that subordinates women, but also this biological differentiation is turned into psychological dependency by men and the social structure as a whole. This stream of feminism is, however, criticized for being biological, determinist, and reductionist. It also does not provide any alternative to end patriarchy or improve the condition of women. They advocate that women should be made aware of this kind of subordination, which in turn can help in improving their condition. Becky, 1979, Levin, 2006, James, 2010, Granada, 2007. Thank you very much.